Okay. Hi, Lindsay. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning. I'm so excited to finally be doing this with you.
I can't believe we did it.
And like on a whim, we've been trying to do this for, I don't even know, a couple of months at least. Just trying to figure out when we wanted to sit down and talk about both of our experiences and know how, or let our followers and our listeners know um, how we can help them because there
Mhm.
are so many women out there that need both of us in their corner.
Yep, it's true. And one of my favorite things is, it's easy to go search for information. It's hard to find practical help and to know what to do. And I think for my journey, and I know yours too, we would have really benefited from having somebody on that physical end and someone on that emotional end, right? For the whole body. And this whole time, I'm kind of sending people to you and you're kind of sending people to me. And we're kind of thinking about knowing how we can work together to help women in the way we needed help. And then we're both so busy helping women that we're having a hard time connecting. So this was a small miracle.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So why don't we start? Why don't you talk a little bit about what you do and how you help women? And why don't you describe to people how we met?
Okay. So I call it weird. Okay. So it's catching steam now. Tapping is catching steam. We kind of say it's about 10 years behind acupuncture as far as awareness goes. Really, once I start doing this, everyone's like, oh, yeah, I think I've seen that or seen some videos. And I kind of stand by it. It is weird. It does seem weird. It looks weird. I've thought that from the beginning. But what's especially weird is that it has such a strong physiological impact on the actual body that it is healing things that other things aren't healing. It's providing, you and I have talked about the epidemic of people being medicated, right? Antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds. Maybe there's a time, a place, and a season, but when the root of the anxiety or the depression, which are just human emotions, they're just normal human emotions that we all have, are addressed, those meds don't have a place or a purpose anymore. And so tapping really in a nutshell is accessing the body's energy meridian system, which ancient Chinese medicine has known all along, and we're just late to the game. And we're really just focusing in on a problem, whether it's an emotional problem or a physical problem like pain, if we address it differently than we normally do in the world. So if you're at coffee, really like venting and complaining about somebody who upset you, your subconscious doesn't really know if you're really complaining about that right then, or maybe if it's reminding you of something old that happened when you were younger, this horrible fight. Our subconscious keeps track of these incredible things that we're not aware of. So with the tapping, we're accessing these points and we're using certain words. And what we're doing is we're actually saying, hey, subconscious, I know that you know things that I don't about what's going on here. So right here in this is like that, like holding space, right? That joke of like, I'm going to hold space for you. But we're really actually creating a space to say, hey, there's this problem, okay, whether it's physical or emotional, and I'm going to give it some attention right now, no matter what. And whatever information you're protecting me from right now, subconscious, you normally want me to run or hide. I'm telling you, take a back seat. I'm totally safe right here in my surroundings. You don't have to protect me from this. And that's where it's all at. It's in the points that you're touching that are accessing different organ systems in your body, right? Because we all know, hopefully by now, we're learning that our emotions are held in different organs, different systems in our body, muscles, right? And we're allowing actually our cortisol to drop. Our cortisol, as you know, is our primary stress hormone. So we're physically getting our cortisol to drop. As it drops, our blood goes back into our brain. And so now something that really angered us or made us like feel like a child again, we have our blood in our brain. We can actually think about it and process it, and things start getting filed properly. So something, a problem that happened 10 years ago might feel like it's happening all over again. When we talk about it, now we're filing it 10 years ago, and we're really freed up that energy. So I'm working with women on the emotional components and the physical components. And I'm still shocked to this day how linked they both are when we really think something's an injury, but then
Oh,
we
yes.
focus in on how we felt emotionally when that injury happened, and it finally
Yes.
lets go.
It's so
So
interesting you like spoke about the subconscious and how the subconscious mind knows more about what's going on inside your body than you actually consciously know. And it's almost like you said 10 years ago, a fight you had 10 years ago, but this could literally be a emotional trauma that you experienced as a child and might literally not even remember.
right.
Like
And
consciously, you may not even know it even happened, or you do know it happened, but you think, oh God, I was 5 years old or I was 8 years old. It's not even a thing anymore. But what's happening is, you become an adult, your husband and you get into an argument, you resort right back to that behavior, right? You become
yes,
childlike again. You're dealing with your problems in a childlike way and projecting it because you never processed and never really healed, and your body is storing that
yes,
inside, and you gotta
yeah.
move it, you gotta process it.
Yes. And you just did a great job of explaining that for me. And it's things that if we remember, okay, so one, we were talking about like but what do we do about it? Like, okay, so we
Right.
know our subconscious is locking down information. We're really using words. Hey, we're not really using those, but you're keeping things from me.
Yeah,
Right now, I'm
yeah,
really safe with whatever those things are. I'm safe right now with them. And it's amazing how our subconscious just starts popping up these memories. And some people are afraid of whatever's going to come up.
of
If it comes
course.
up, it's safe to come up because you made it safe to come up. So it's never going to be anything you're not prepared for. And if you do remember, right, if you do remember what the event is, because a lot of us can go, well, yeah, I remember this one time that seems kind of similar, but that's silly. That's just little kid business. Or
Yeah, you push it away, you reject the feeling.
well, it was fine. It was no big
Yeah,
deal.
yeah,
It was just this mean kid who pushed me on the playground. He was always mean. He was mean to everybody all the time. It's fine. Wasn't fine to your 4-year-old self who'd never been pushed by a bully. That was the very first time your safe little tiny self had ever felt unsafe. And that's
right.
all it is. Where was their safety? Where did something feel unsafe? And we go back there. I mean, I laugh through half my sessions with people because they're like, there's no way that that is the reason that I am the way I am now. I'm like, well, let's find out. And we go and we tap on it. And why does it matter? It's not about just discovering it, but once we go back into that memory and really access that frequency that has been stored in the body, spend a little time on it, just, it just gets its attention. And it really does leave. And so it's the difference of, I had someone this week who was in a horrible school bus accident when she was 9, and it was a foggy day. And so ever since then, she's, not always in the best mood when the fog comes out because her subconscious has scanned that fog's not safe, just trying to keep her safe from driving in the fog.
Absolutely.
Well, we accessed that memory. We worked on it. And she texted me this morning. She said, I woke up, it was a foggy day, and I just don't have that heavy feeling. So when we access it, it's kind of like, we don't have to do anything else with it. We don't have to try every single day to feel better. Like we have to try so hard with other things like discipline ourselves to exercise or discipline ourselves to eat healthy. Or I'm trying to drink a gallon of water right now. I'm really having to do that in discipline. With tapping, you access it and the results kind of fall upon you effortlessly and just make things easier, lighter.
That is incredible. That is
Yeah.
incredible. I'm
So fun.
curious to know, because this is, well, I mean, I already know this, but I want others to know this. But instead of it being perhaps an emotional trauma or subconscious feeling or energy that's built up in our body, can this work for, like, can tapping work for stories we've created about ourselves? So for instance, for a very long time, my story always was, I'm not good enough. So like, I'm not joking when I tell you it could have resorted around a relationship or my career or school, or like, it didn't matter. If I was triggered emotionally, if I really broke it down to what the story was that I was telling myself, was always, I'm not good enough. And so, whether that has something to do with my childhood or not, like a specific like a specific moment or moments, can women, men, whatever, adults work through something like that? Now, it is something that I have worked through, but is it something that you can work through in just in terms of like almost like the little fibs we're telling ourselves from and keeping us from progressing in life?
Yeah. So that's a fun one. You could literally Google tapping on I'm not good enough or feelings of I'm not good enough. And it might be the biggest hit with tapping.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because, again, that's a normal human emotion. But so there's actually a technique with tapping called tell the story. Like, it's that simple. And when we tell a story, if I were to really have had you tell that story, you could tell the story and it feels really true. But you might notice as you're telling the story, all of a sudden you get to a certain point where you're like, oh, right. Like, you feel something in your body, or, like that boyfriend that broke up with you, or that best friend that didn't want to be friends anymore. And oftentimes our body will physically respond, and that's because when that happened, it was so painful, and our subconscious doesn't care about keeping us emotionally stable. It only wants to keep us alive. So in those moments, for you, we don't have to know. If you and I were really going to work on that, which you have, which is amazing, but I work on this one all the time with people, is it doesn't matter if it's something your subconscious is blocking out, or if you really have some memories. We just can go through and tell that story, or you can recall a time that you just felt like you weren't good enough. And your body is actually, a lot of what I try to help women do is reconnect them to their body, because in today's culture, we work against our body, which we'll go into how we met too, because that's a part of it, is we work against our body and what's wrong with me and what's wrong with my body. And if we were taught to run from that bully when we were 3 years old, our subconscious scans that bully is not safe. And now when we see the bully, we really physically run because our cortisol went up, our blood left our brain, and we run. The same thing goes when we say, I hate my body, or because that person broke up with me, or, stop being friends with me, I must not be good enough. What's wrong with me? And that internal dialogue, we hear that it matters, but the reason it matters is because our subconscious is just saying, give me information on how to keep you alive. And so if we now are the problem and we are the bully,
It makes me so sad. Yeah.
it's so sad, because our body is going to behave. It's going to act like our body is the problem. It's going to act like we are the problem. And it's going to start rejecting us, which is where autoimmune disease, that's what I see, is there's a lot of self-rejection in there. And that's not to shame anybody, but there's a lot of self-rejection in there. Though you would understand better than I do how the body is actually working with something like autoimmune disease. And it is like the body is attacking itself, right?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the things that we say to ourselves. And so with tapping, one of my favorite things is, I could have asked you, Michele, do you know that you're good enough? Right? Do you know that? And
Consciously, I could say yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff your mom or dad would say, or our best friend. Do you feel good enough? No, like 100% no.
Yeah.
So with tapping, we get to do what no one else lets us do. And we get to actually sit in the feeling. This is where it gets uncomfortable for people, because we've been taught to manifest money and manifest a partner and happiness.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm here to deconstruct all that. And what we're really doing is saying, I really don't feel good enough. And it's a space to really access. It's a real frequency. It's a real feeling. It's real energy in our body, and really give permission. But what we're also doing is accepting the human part of us.
Accepting, that is the word, right?
Right? Because we'll say, I love and accept myself, but I don't love and accept myself, especially if I don't feel good enough. No, could you love and accept the part that is aware of your feelings? Can you love and accept the part of you that knows you don't feel good enough, but that you feel like that's wrong? Can you accept the part of you that believes there might be another version of you who could actually feel good enough? That's what we're accepting. And that's that magic connection with tapping, is, even though I'm feeling this way, I don't feel good enough because of this story that is a true, accurate story, or a story we've written. I am accepting this human emotion inside my body, and I'm safe to sit with it right now. And that's where it happens. It unlocks, it moves, our mind reconnects with our body. Suddenly we're not the enemy anymore. We're our healer and our best friend. And so again, it's just acknowledging it, it unlocks it, and boom, some people go, I don't know why, but I actually kind of just feel like just me as I am, I'm good enough. And it's not hypnotism. People get these real results of like, I didn't feel good enough, and somehow I do now. But we broke through those frequencies and energies that were really just lies from our past. attached to a certain season or story. And we've had so many different stories since then of evidence that we are so good at being who we were designed to be. And I always say it's like wringing out a sponge. When you tell that story and you're tapping, you're wringing out all of those stories and all of those lies, or maybe truths. Maybe there was a time you really weren't good enough. Fine, we're human, right? But acknowledging that and like, okay, like I didn't do my best. I'm a human. And then now you have an empty sponge that's ready to soak up anything you put near it. You just didn't have room to see in front of you that you are being a good enough wife. You're being a good enough friend. You're being a good enough coach, but you didn't have any room to see that or feel that because your sponge was so full of all that old stuff from 6th grade.
Oh,
So
that is so
thank you.
powerful. I gotta say, I often, so your sponge analogy, I often think about it like a working out. I mean, I am a personal trainer and I've worked out my whole life. And I think about it like, the more you work on that muscle, the stronger it gets. So either way you think about it, the more negative self-talk you have, the more you are trying to prove your not good enough story right. You know, the more you're avoiding seeing all the things you're doing so great, the stronger that muscle is going to get. But it does work in the opposite way too. Like the more you notice the things you're doing fantastic, and the more you talk about yourself positively and have positive feelings about yourself, whether that be a physical thing or just like, I did a great job today. Like really learning to accept the greatness about yourself, that muscle also becomes stronger.
Yes.
Yes. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. And there's another thing that you said that I just want to touch on with a lot of my clients, again, because I do the physical work with lots of people in terms of personal training. When I hear male and female clients talk so much trash about themselves, like honestly, I used to coddle it. I literally, when I was younger, I'd be like, no, don't feel that way. Now my response is, hey, hang on a second. When you start talking negatively like that, your body hears you. Like, stop it. Because it really is true. The emotional side of things, the way your brain is communicating with your body's systems, there's a real reaction in that. And I love the way you said it, that your body is literally doing nothing but keeping you alive. Your brain is what's telling it how to respond to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's habit.
that's really
People
powerful.
build a habit around talking bad about themselves. And I always say tapping helps, 80%, where you would have to, to build a new habit, let's say, I think it's something about 63 days is a real long-term habit built in, I think, according to Carolyn Leaf, who I love, you might know. But if you're trying to build a habit and also tapping, it really might only take a week.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really reducing that like heavy charge and that heavy feeling behind all of it, all of your evidence of why you're so awful.
Yeah, yeah. And what's so interesting, you also touched on this just for a second, and you used the word accepting, and I don't know where, and it took me a long time, so maybe it's just experience in life, but like when is the actual time come, or when does the actual time come that we accept emotions like sadness, anger, despair, guilt, gosh, anything that we would deem as a negative emotion? But like, why don't we just accept these things as human, like real human emotions, and that they don't actually hold any meaning to who you are? It's just a season. People can feel negatively, and that just be a part of life. And guess what? We can move on from that.
Well, so what would it say about you if something really tragic and sad happened and you didn't feel sad?
Absolutely. Somebody would call you a narcissist or a sociopath,
Yeah.
Like I don't know where we strive to be happy 100% of the time, when that is impossible. And it can be uncomfortable to be dealing with negative feelings, but they are so necessary in so many ways. And when you start to reject the negative feelings, it's like you're rejecting a part of yourself, and now your body's reacting to that.
Yes, perfectly said. That's
Yeah.
exactly what's happening. And my kind of analogy is, so So oftentimes we see the problem. There's an outside problem, and that's what we're reacting to usually, right? Sometimes we're the problem. I've been the
Yeah,
problem in my life before,
me too.
and right, because like we're humans, and I saw something that said that if people who like don't have problems are just the ones not willing to acknowledge them,
Oh
and
yeah.
they probably are the problem, in everybody else's lives. But that's what I say all the time is, okay, so we don't like hard, uncomfortable feelings. Somewhere we were taught that life is supposed to be like good and happy all the time. And the older I get, the more my husband and I, especially, because we're like super partners in this life, is we're going, wait a minute, we think actually maybe life is really hard all the time. And there's always challenges and there's always hardships. And that might actually be the human experience, which is why if we can look at it from that scope, it's not a like, womp, womp, womp. It's like, hey, wait a minute. If we can always expect hard things to be happening out of our control, because we don't want that, then it helps you to really anchor into the goodness and to add more goodness into your life, build things that you're proud of, add things that make you joyful and connected with other people, because the heavy and the hard is going to be there. But so when that heavy and that hard happens, there's a really fine line between that problem that's making you feel sad or hurt or angry or conflicted, right? Because now you have to figure out a solution when this wasn't a problem before. We can all relate to COVID season, where that was just this big thing outside of us. We were just going on with our life. We didn't create that. And so as it unfolds, and maybe there's rules, regulations, arguments, now we have this internal battle. What do I do? What do I say?
Yeah.
Families were in disagreement. So we have this internal battle and this uncomfortable feeling, and there's a problem over here that's creating inner conflict for us. It doesn't mean we are the problem. But if we can't fix it or solve it with our brain, we so quickly go to what's wrong with me? I'm not good enough.
Right.
But all we're doing is comparing ourselves to this big outside problem that we had nothing to do with. It's just causing a problem for us.
Yeah.
And especially as women, we're fixers and we're healers. And so we're used to like, see the problem, fix it. And now if there's something especially that we can't see or fix, we're still feeling that feeling. And that's where we quickly go into, I have to keep trying to fix this or else something's wrong with me. Now we've just made ourselves the problem again to something that was completely outside our control. So that acceptance piece is, and I have my girls say this all the time, and I think it's the quickest way to tapping, working on anything is, even though I feel so conflicted about this argument my two best friends are having, I deeply and completely accept how I feel about it. That's what we're doing with that. I accept myself. What is yourself in that? Myself is, I love these two people. I really care about them. We have very close relationships. I honor both of them. And when I see them in conflict, it hurts me because I love them so much. So then we're just accepting, right? It helps us accept the problem. Those are two people in the world with human emotions. So now I'm accepting the human nature of me that can see two people I love in conflict and just want to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that right there is often enough to go, I can't fix it. It's not my problem.
Yeah. I also think it provides you with more empathy when you can accept emotions within yourself. When you're in conflict with your child or your husband or whoever, your partner, etc., like, and they're coming at you, you can go, well, yeah, hold on a second. I get that you're so angry, but it's not going to trigger me because I accept that you have a feeling about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And that we're having an actual disagreement face to face that's heated. And, I accept that we're willing to do this together instead of walking away and slamming doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's amazing.
That's powerful. And I love it. And I have been sending you people, and you are actually in one of my worksheets that I send out to everybody. The link to your Instagram account is always there. And I always recommend the EFT tapping with you because I know how healing it really is. And I stress in my work that the physical stuff will not heal without the emotional aspect. It will not happen. Right. In my own journey through healing, it was painful and it was uncomfortable, and, you know, really having to look in the mirror ultimately was a struggle. But until I learned to accept, stopped rejecting myself, and really truly learned to love myself, the physical stuff didn't come.
Yeah. And vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about you and some of that journey and what you do and why you do it,
Yeah.
because it's so connected. You know, you said you really couldn't have moved through the physical. There's those clogs that happen in the system, in our body system. And when we acknowledge the emotional stuff, and let me say this too, for anybody who might listen to this, it's like, I don't want to feel emotions. I hate talking about, I saw a therapist for 15 years and all I did was talk about my emotions and nothing got it. In a whole tapping session, I do not need to know anything about anyone's life. That's the cool thing, because it's just about you and that feeling. And as long as you can sit and feel it, I can hold that for you and I can guide you through it. I don't have to know details. That's the beautiful thing, is nobody really has to. You can cry about it if you want to, you know, definitely emotions are important. But I've got some girls who say, I don't want to sit in these emotions. It's okay. Well, what is it you want to, you know, do you know what you want to work on? Yes. Okay. Can you think about it? Yes. When you think about it, can you feel it anywhere in your body? Yes. My shoulders tense up. Great. Now we're just talking about their tense shoulders, their heavy shoulders. Oh, their shoulders feel like they're carrying the weight of the world. Is what you're thinking about, does it have anything to do with feeling like you're carrying the weight of the world? Oh my gosh, yes, it's exactly like that. Great. So now they are tapping on this physical sensation in their body, which is much safer and more comfortable for them than the emotional, maybe trauma they've been through, unfortunately, with a lot of talking or talk therapy, which there's a time and place for, and using their shoulders and that heaviness to acknowledge the emotional components, and the emotional stuff will shift. So that's one of the things that's so beautiful, is that anybody who really doesn't want to touch the emotional doesn't really have to, at least not verbally with me.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's really, really fantastic. It's
it's
not
important.
easy to sort of rehash, you know, emotions from a really traumatic time in your life, but recognizing the physical, that the physical that happens when you are sort of thinking about it is an interesting way to sort of release it. That's amazing.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, I also love, and we touched on it just before we started recording, but I also love that you offered or offer a solution for people, because oftentimes talk therapy doesn't offer a solution. It gives you a great outlet, you know, gives you unbiased perspective, generally, I hope. Gosh, I hope. But yeah, it doesn't always offer the solution to move forward, the solution to let go, the solution to accept. And I've been in talk therapy for a number of years, and it took me 6 different therapists to actually find somebody who spent time with real tools that I could leave with to like actually process some emotional trauma. And like, I love her, and she is like, she's available when I feel like I'm in crisis, or she's available when I just feel like I need to, like, you know, spew whatever I need to spew. She's incredible. But I haven't had that experience with very many.
No, because people usually are going to tell us what we already know. We already know that we have this addiction. We already know. Make it stop.
Yeah. Like, I need to change. I don't want to rehash it over and over.
I was too big of a drinker at one point, and I was just shoving emotions down, you know, that I didn't want to deal with. And I remember I was learning tapping, and I thought, okay, well, I really want wine right now, real bad. And I can't imagine anything ever changing that. And so I decided to just tap on that the best I knew how to, you know, in the beginning. And it was interesting. I think I ended up forgetting what I was tapping on about 60, 90 seconds later. And once I got home, because I was on a drive, once I got home, I went through my habit of, I grabbed the wine, right? I put it on the counter. I got my glass. I got the bottle opener. I opened it. I poured the wine, right? Because it's a habit. That's all muscle habit. And when I went and put it, I was nauseous. I mean, I was nauseous. It didn't smell good. And I didn't want it for 3 years after that. And it was a joke. My husband was like, hey, we're like going to like functions and events, and we're the only one. We're like, can we carry it? Hold a glass, you know? And he said, can you tap it back in? But that for me was, you know, I mean, in a healthy way.
Yeah.
But like, really, right? Because I would have liked to just be that person who can sip on a glass of wine, but I wasn't at the time. And so that was just an example of, anybody can tell us, just don't buy the wine anymore. Just don't open it.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I already know it's just don't. That's not working. Whereas I spent just a little time being like, I want it really bad. And that's that feeling. I really was like not avoiding the feeling. I was like, it tastes so good and it feels so good in my mouth. And I like holding the glass. Like I really, like you really gave it attention, and it was like, oh, gone. And so that's when we have somebody, what we know to do versus it feels a lot easier to move forward. And it feels easier to do what I know to do. It feels
Oh,
easier to be who I want to be. It feels easier for some reason to put that wine down. And what took the place of my wine? Some people would substitute it with something unhealthy. Man, I was so much more connected with my family.
oh,
You know,
that's so
yeah.
wonderful. What a
So
story.
gifts come into those spaces just because it's heavy feelings and emotion, big, hard, heavy things that we're working through. All we're doing is clearing out space for the goodness that it's right in front of us most of the time, and we don't have room for it.
That's incredible. I didn't know that about you. And thank you so much for sharing that. I think that if people are struggling to understand the concept of like getting to that emotion and feeling it in their body, I feel like that's a story that so many people could relate to and like start to really understand the difference between conscious thinking and subconscious behavior or
Well, yeah, and like you said, like we think we're the problem. It's a problem. I drink too much, or I'm a, what's the problem? Wait a minute, we have an opportunity here to learn something about ourselves. All of this is like, be excited, be curious. What is this teaching? I learned so much about what was really going on in me, and forever now I can be a better best friend to myself in knowing, wow, that was so easy for me to slip into. And it was so easy for me to avoid certain topics that were really big and important. And now it helps me honor myself more, love myself more, be more proud of myself, because now in any of those moments when I normally would have just numbed, I'm like eye contact, with whatever it is. I'm talking with whoever it is instead of avoiding it. Those are all those big things that come and that grow when that thing's out of the way. That's what you're talking about, is like, let's grow this stuff about ourselves. Like I really learned something about me. And one thing I learned is I am able to tackle problems head on, but I was surrounding myself by the wrong people.
Oh,
Right.
I mean, we could touch on that.
Yeah.
As you heal, this is
Uh-huh.
something so incredible. As you heal those parts of you,
You might lose all your people.
those wrong people, they just drop off. And it is terrifying in the beginning and it's uncomfortable. I've been through it too.
Uh-huh.
And you literally just have to have faith that as soon as you love yourself, like fully accept yourself fully, the right people
Yeah.
show up. Like they literally just show up.
Yes,
I
they
would
do. I'm writing this
say,
down because you and I have so many more times to connect. But
I know.
self-love, they say you can't love others until you truly love yourself. And, there's a lot of that, like saying no to myself. I was suddenly able to say no to others.
Yes. Can I
So,
tell you that just briefly here, I have some childhood issues with my parents. I mean, everybody does, but I do specifically, and I know this. And the type of men that I would choose growing up in like my high school, into university, into my young adulthood and whatnot, were always, and we've touched on it personally, you and I before, were always the most narcissistic, verbally and emotionally abusive. And they always made me feel not good enough. I always felt like I had to beg for them to love me. I had to beg for them, obviously not like on my knees begging, but like always felt like I had to go above and beyond even my comfort level, not just almost like disregard my own feelings, disregard my own self-respect to make this person just treat me like decently. You know what I mean? Like not even like for them to go above and beyond for me, just to like not be fighting or like, whatever. And when I ended my last relationship, I could see myself going down the same path again. I like kind of like, you snap out of that world and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm on a date with a guy just like this. But I was way more conscious about it. I was at that point doing the work, doing the emotional work, spending time with myself, not just jumping into another relationship. Definitely dating, wanting to see like the world and what I was missing for 7 years and whatnot, which I felt was okay. But it truly was not until I finally found a place of comfort in myself with nobody else, realizing that, my God, I do not need to beg somebody to love me. It wasn't until then that my now husband, who I have known for 10 years, showed up in my life as a romantic partner. And it was, I'm not kidding you, within 6 months, we both just kind of looked at each other and were like, this is for real. And he's like, this is for real. We've now been together just about 3 years. And like literally every day he's my best friend. There is no, I can say to him, I'm just not feeling it today. Like whatever that might be. I'm having a down day. I'm not feeling great, whatever. And he'll just look at me and go, how can I make it better for you? Is there anything I can do? Like, it's just, there's no chaos. There's no begging. We're both just individual people wanting to make each other's lives better, not trying to make it worse. And I wholeheartedly believe that he would not have come into my life in this capacity if I didn't do the work.
Yeah.
If I didn't do
Oh,
that.
you would still be just blowing through narcissists, or you would have children with one right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then be divorced ultimately.
And you'd be like a lot of my clients who are now in court fighting for
Yeah.
their own children to be with them. And how are all of those ex-boyfriends doing now without you?
Well,
Right?
to be completely honest with you, I don't know, but they're probably
Good.
just on to the next girl who's begging them to love them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't fix them. And that's that part. It's like, but I could fix them, or I could, if only I was better, if only I was good enough. Nah, like that's a whole other episode, is narcissism. But like they're over there doing exactly the same thing that they were doing, whether you had ever come into their life or not. None of it had anything to do with you.
Absolutely.
But yes, like as you kind of emptied that sponge, and I think that's like part of the point we're trying to make too, is like we have a disadvantage in like how many advertisements and how many people are sharing stuff on social media, that's like just love yourself. It's like, it's not pretty.
No, it's not.
It's not easy. But you actually had to act as if you were worth loving first. And you had to actually spend some time and energy. And we always want to know, like, but it's not easy. I don't even know where to start. Yeah, because you're literally, if you've ever had a season of peace in your life, you know how to get back to peace. But if you've never experienced peace and now you have to create it for yourself, by yourself, that's a challenge. And that's what you did. And that's what real healing is doing for yourself what nobody else is ever going to be able to do for you, but you're not doing it alone. And you probably didn't do it alone.
I did not do it alone. And
Yeah.
you are not wrong. And there are like exactly people like you who help guide and who help support and who help hold space for those who have lived in this chaotic world, whether it's just in their mind or in their surroundings, and don't know how to break out of that cycle. I'm so happy that we were talking today, and I know we'll talk in the future.
Yes.
I'm so happy that you are here. I'm so happy that you are somebody who supports women, because I can't even tell you how many friends of mine settle in terrible relationships, how many friends of mine talk so negatively about themselves, are medicated, can't sleep, suffering from major chronic symptoms and issues, which we can talk about in part 2, that emotional healing will help, will help dramatically.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy that you are somebody who they can connect with. And I just love you so much. So sending my people to you is, I already know they're in good hands. So I have no issues with that at all. But thank you so much for sharing today what you do and how you help ladies.
Thank you.